Well, welcome everyone. We're so excited to have you all here. Well, we have been meeting and talking about 504E funds and the best way to access those funds. So the Transportation Workforce Management Subcommittee asked a few of us to put together a presentation around how we are doing that. So myself, Lorri Economy with Utah Department of Transportation, Jessika with Idaho Department of Transportation, and James with Michigan have been meeting in a small little group and putting together a short presentation for all of you around how we are each managing those 504E funds within our organization. So I'm going to go ahead and steal the presentation here real quick. I think.
We can see it, Lorri.
You see, does everyone see UDOT then right there on the screen?
Yep.
Great, thank you so much. All right. So we thought we would start off here just real quick in terms of making sure that we're all on the same page and talking about 504E funds. So IIJA, when that was authorized, they have a section in there called Training, Education, and Workforce Development. This is Title 23 of Utah State Code, and that's where you'll hear us always talk about 504E. It is the United States Code that we're referencing there. And I was just curious, by raise of hands, of anybody else that is also using 504E funds. I'm curious if others are doing that. If you guys could just raise your hands. Okay, I see quite a few going up. Oh, so it looks like we have about 5 or 6 hands. Any others? Okay, those hands are going down. Well, great. We look forward to hearing from all of you as well in terms of how you're doing that and accessing the funds. So just real quick, UDOT has been using 504E funds for quite some time. I've been in my position 10 years, and this was already in process when I got to UDOT. And so I just took over that process. They have been refining it over time. And so in the last few years, I thought I would walk through what are our steps for approval on that. And so here on the screen, you'll see the steps for approval. First, I have to gain some support from DOT leadership. And that just looks like what funding stream you will be using. You'll see here under 1A that I've listed the different program funds that are available. So you have your National Highway Program Performance Program, your Surface Transportation Block Grant, Highway Safety Improvement Program, Congestion Mitigation, and Air Quality. So you could pick funds from any of those in order to use and draw off the quote-unquote top of that and use that for workforce development activities. So at UDOT, we are actually using the STBG funding for this. And so that is our STIP funding, and that is what we have to get approval for. So each year I talk with our executive director and deputy director, and we determine how much we would like to utilize for workforce development. And then we get that amount in our minds. I create a work plan talking about the different workforce development activities, do some strategic workforce planning around that, determining what types of activities that I'm going to be delivering with those program funds. We need signatures from our leadership at that point, and then we take it before our Transportation Commission, and the Transportation Commission will approve those funds or deny them, but most of the time approve them. After I have that support from leadership and from the Transportation Commission and a workforce plan in place, then I submit that plan to FHWA for review. And once I get back that approval and review, then I can go ahead and work with our DOT finance groups to put that funding in place and for me to start utilizing the funds to deliver the program as I've laid that out. So it's really simple. That's how we're doing that here at UDOT. I think you will find as you listen to all of the other participants that everybody has just a little different process on this, which is why we wanted to give you that point of view from multiple DOTs. We will be sharing, you'll see here in the bottom right-hand corner of my screen, we did create a job aid on what our process is in using those 504E funds. And we will make that available to you before the end of the call today. And then hopefully we'll send that out to everyone. All right. Oops. So I just wanted to talk about this a little bit. I am, like I mentioned, using strategic workforce planning as that process. This comes from our NCHRP domestic scan, and our strategic workforce management committee is also using this process in terms of strategic workforce planning. There's also a playbook that has been made available, and that is out on the AASHTO website, I think in our version 2, that provides some very clear steps on how each individual could do this if you would like to. And so I wanted to make sure that I gave a plug for that. And this is the strategic workforce planning process and that I am following. And so what that looks like, just real quick, is I'm understanding that business needs from an organizational development point of view, and looking at our current organizational goals, different workforce practices that we need to put into place to align with those organizational goals. And then I'm also analyzing our current workforce that's internal and external. So what does our external supply look like? And then what are our needs for our internal workforce? And then I'm taking a look across our organization and understanding what are our needs, understanding the future just a little bit, understanding other information that I might need to gather to help us make those decisions. So that looks like really some workforce analytics that I'm gathering in order to make that decision. And from that, I'm writing up some information about our current state and what that looks like, and then looking at that future state and trying to determine what workforce development strategies I will need to put into place in order to meet those needs. And then I develop that workforce plan, which you'll see here in the last column. And my workforce plan is going to cover everything from recruitment to onboarding, retention, talent management, our succession planning, leadership, internal and external workforce needs. And then I just go ahead and I put that plan in place and submit that information over to FHWA. And we walk through an approval process. I have to include a budget and a workforce plan. And it does look something like this. This is what I submit to them, along with that write-up of our industry, our industry analysis and our current workforce needs internally and externally across the transportation industry in Utah. And just wanted to talk a little bit about, I am using this to cover, like I mentioned, the whole employee experience from that attraction effort onto our succession planning efforts. And so I wanted to make sure that I did call that out. As you'll hear when other DOTs talk about it, some people are doing just one program or something along those lines, but I am really looking at the whole talent life cycle. And then here, I just wanted to make sure that I talked a little bit about specifics when I say, what am I doing? These are some of the activities that I am doing underneath each of those moments of the talent life cycle. So I have here the career fairs and our industry partnerships, definitely partnering with K through 12 education and going out into the high schools and junior highs and elementary schools and talking about transportation. We participate in this large STEM Fest every year, tens of thousands of kids coming through that. It's a lot of fun. And we're really there just to talk about transportation being a great industry to come to work for and to really create awareness around transportation as a whole. And then we're onboarding our individuals into the organization, and we have a process in there where we're implementing our strengths into our organization, and it's a part of our onboarding process as well, and career pathing, etc. And then for our technical training, we're using it for all of our technical training program. UDOT, we have some really large technical training programs. We have our transportation education program, which covers about 500 people internally. And again, how we're using this to attract people is we're letting them know that we will train you as you come into the department, and you will not be stuck within one career, that our hope is for you to move about through the organization and have opportunities for promotion. We also have a construction training program, which is really large, and right now we are in the middle of revamping that. And actually, we train our internal and external workforce with our construction training program. So that is also an opportunity to create awareness about transportation industry as a whole. So really, when I could list off all of the technical training programs that probably many of you have across the department that we are using to these funds to support. And then we have our UDOT Leadership Institute, and we have a leadership development strategy there that we really do try to encourage people to come in and take as many leadership development trainings as possible. So we have those that are not quite in a leadership position yet, but also are just interested in what it might look like to be a leader in our organization. We have a new supervisor training, and then we have our Richfield experience, which we take about 65 of our middle-level leaders down to Richfield for a few days, and they interface with our senior leadership team, and it's an amazing networking opportunity for them. And then, of course, we support AASHTO, and we send many leaders throughout UDOT to the different AASHTO leadership institutes as well with that funding. And then we have our education assistants, which is also another attraction and retention effort, but we do have educational assistance available for anybody who's interested, and we make that available with this funding. And then, of course, internship programs. So we do have internship program. Right now, we're really focused on those college age interns, and we hope to transition into a high school internship program here in the next year. And that is on the table for us and in my work plan for next year. So that's a little bit about UDOT and how we're accessing 504E funds, and then how we are also utilizing them. And I'm going to take a quick look at the chat. I just see that we have a welcome there, but at this time I would be willing to take any questions that the group might have around UDOT. And if you don't have any, I'm going to transition over to Jessika to talk about how Idaho is doing that. So Jessika, I think you can just take my screen. No? I will stop sharing. Let's see, I see a message here from Sarah. How much flexibility is in your plan? What if things arise that aren't on the original plan? Yes, so what you're supposed to do is contact FHWA and let them know that the work plan has changed. I have had them come back and ask for results of our work plans, and so I do make sure that I follow through with that. And I do supply at the end of every year a summary of what we did the previous year. So I would say it's flexible. You just need to ask. You make sure that you're informing. I wouldn't say ask. I think informing is a better word. I have found FHWA to be very flexible with this program. You bet, Sarah. Thanks for the question. All right, well, in the interest of time, I'm going to let Jessika go ahead and take over.
Thanks, Lorri. I'm Jessika Doglietto. I am the Workforce Development Program Manager at the Idaho Transportation Department. Diving in, can't find my mouse. All right, everyone can see my screen, correct?
Yes.
Perfect, thanks. Okay, so we have started accessing 504E funds at ITD. We've traditionally accessed them for internal development in the use of more NHI and technical training based, but we wanted to increase that and also expand our programs. So some ways that we did this in 2020 as well as 2021 and 2022, we applied for grants to help run our ICONIC program. ICONIC is a 5-week program that we run here in the state to help external Idahoans get into the highway construction industry. We focus on heavy equipment operating. We've done some concrete sidewalk projects. We do first aid, OSHA, flagging, CPR, and then some other small technical trainings as well, and then help them enter into the industry. These students are also encouraged to apply for ITD jobs, and we offer them the benefits of what it is like to work for ITD as well. Students who go through the ICONIC program can also access the launch program that we have in the state, which is a state partnership through the Idaho Workforce Development Council, and they offer those CDLs. It was through the success of this program that we were able to start the conversation of the 504E funding with our leadership. This started with conversations with the ITD executive leadership and gaining their support for the programs that we had the potential to run. From there, we went on to leverage support from our partners. At ITD, we partner with the Idaho Workforce Development Council, the Idaho Department of Labor, as well as the Idaho AGC to help make these programs all possible and stretch our dollars as much as we can. From there, we sought out our board approval. So we went to the board in September, presented the plan, and then went to the board the following month to ask for approval of allocation. And the board approved it there. From there, we went to the Federal Highway Administration and asked for their additional approval. We created a work plan to show the FHWA what we had planned to do with the money, and then we obligated the funding. 2024 is where we're expanding and we're going to implement those different programs that we presented in the plan. From there, at the end of the federal fiscal year, we'll report back out to our board as well as to FHWA on the success we've had. And then from there, if we've had generated success and want to seek additional funding, we would ask for additional funding at that time. So these are all of our different programs that we have and the different ways that we fund all of them. We don't just use 504E. It is a benefit to our programs and helps us expand our programs significantly. I have found that showing success through grants and then utilizing that success to help leverage the access of 504E funds works the best for us in Idaho. So some of the programs that we have, just kind of diving into it. For our external programs, we access about $450,000 in 504E. We utilize OJT supportive services, and we also access the STIC grant to help fund ICONIC and our college stipend program. We also partner in these services with Idaho Department of Labor, and BTI is our training provider. The college stipend program is a new program that we've been working on this year. We partnered with our Idaho Department of Human Resources to help bring the program into fruition, and we'll be starting to recruit students in the fall. So in partnership with ICONIC and Department of Labor, they help us recruit, case manage, as well as data collection for reporting back to the FHWA. This is helping us leverage the ability to ensure that all students who go through the ICONIC program get jobs, and we are able to access additional state resources and funding for those students. We also partner with BTI to deliver the training for students. They're a mobile vendor that can also provide training to youth, adults, as well as incarcerated residents. Some different supportive services that we offer is housing, childcare, gas, PPE, CDLs, as well as stipends. Then we have our youth programs. Currently, we're only utilizing National Summer Transportation Institute funding, and we get $50,000. We sometimes transfer the $50,000 into on-the-job training supportive services in efforts to run a National Flight Academy program. It is my goal to try and obtain additional 504E funding so that I can run the STEM camps and the National Flight Academy programs more frequently. Additionally, beyond the NSTI program for youth, I would like to access the 504E funding to help implement more apprenticeships for youth in Idaho, as well as internships where they are possible. We've been looking at mechanics, apprenticeships, and internships, as well as looking at how we can expand our transportation tech series out to youth. The NSTI program partners with colleges and universities for our STEM camps. This is 2 local 1-week cohorts for 5th through 7th graders and is STEM focused, and it's ran through higher education. And then our National Flight Academy program is based in Pensacola, Florida on the naval base. We picked 10 kids from Idaho and they utilize flight simulators to learn how to fly planes throughout the week. Additionally, we have internal programs and we use $200,000 of 504A funding. We use this to run curriculum-specific training, National Highway Institute training, as well as specialized equipment training. We do some internal equipment training, but we'll also bring in vendors who can train in mobile crane, digger derricks, bucket trucks. We do a lot of NHI classes, and we've been increasing our NHI classes that we offer. And then we will also bring in additional curriculum providers and use NHI or 504E to provide those funding to the curriculum sources. Here at ITD, we utilize the 504E to help develop our employees. We have HCPs, we have our own ELDT program, our own equipment operator program. We offer the NHI classes. We have materials and inspection qualification certifications. For the classes that we don't offer internally, we'll use the 504E funding to provide the tuition for our employees. All right, and that is all I have today. That is my contact information. Is there any questions from the group before I pass it over to James? James, I think it's all you.
Actually, I think a question just came in. Actually, a couple questions.
Yeah. How many people are in my office? So I have a team of 9. I have 6 district trainers that report in each one of the districts to deliver the technical training inside the districts. They do all of our inspector qualification exams, as well as all of our materials testing qualifications. And then they'll also teach things like flagging, defensive driving, first aid, forklift. And then I also have 3 equipment trainers, and they deliver the equipment training across the state. I'm trying to look at ways that I can expand out to different pieces of equipment. They are a little bit stretched thin right now with the equipment that we do have, but I'm trying to see if there's other resources I can leverage to expand our delivery. The internal cost of our ELDT program, we worked through ClearRoads to bring in the curriculum, and we have all the presentations that are through ClearRoads. We redesign them so that they are specific to ITD and have them all uploaded into our learning management system. So employees will go through that virtual online learning module, and then they will, from there, they will do behind the wheel and range training with other employees who have been trained through our Train the Trainer program. And so it's kind of a tag team effort. My team manages all of the FMCSA reporting that is required every time somebody passes their certain steps. And then we also pay, of course, for their licensing and their permits. I'm going to pop my contact information into the chat pod for you, Robin. You should be good to go, James.
All right, thanks, Jessica.
Yeah.
And good afternoon, everyone. My name is James Fults. I'm the Workforce Programs and Recruitment Unit Manager here in the great state of Michigan. Really excited to talk to you about this today. I've done a very similar presentation for Federal Highway, and today I'm going to breeze through a little bit of the program so that we can really get into how we do this. So I will be going over each of our programs, and then, how do we do this from a logistical component, because that has been the question that we continue to receive. So starting out, very similar to Lorri, we use a strategy called talent pipeline management. This is a concept developed by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce that really looks at a holistic view of our talent, starting with career awareness, career exploration, all the way up to full productivity and retention. I really like this graphic. It shows how much engagement and how much of a role we should have with our talent at different points in their journey. And we've structured our programs to align very well with this, which you'll see on the next slide. So beginning with career exploration, we utilize 504 funds for a lot of engagement in different communities around the state. We have an event called My Career Quest that we're really starting to get more engaged in. Michigan Construction Career Days, Construction Science Expo, a lot of those big high value events where we can come as an industry, show, kindergarten up through 8th grade or into high school, the opportunities that exist in the industry and get them prepared for their next step, which could be track, transportation, civil engineering, or now called STEM outreach solutions. We no longer have YDMP, but we've transitioned that program, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Like many states, we do run the NSTI program. We have traditional interns, veteran interns, student assistants, our engineering development program. We're still working towards an apprenticeship. And then a lot of these dollars benefit our current employees. So our transportation and civil engineering program, we engage with middle and high school teachers is where we engage with them. We teach the teachers the modules, they bring those into their classroom. And then each year we give participating schools an opportunity to compete in our National Bridge Challenge. We just had one this April, and there were over 300 students and over 100 different schools from around the state. They get an opportunity to win some scholarships, and we get those scholarships donated by different schools. They win prizes. They get really excited about engineering. New for this year is our new Transportation Career Pathways program. We looked at our youth program. We looked at bringing folks on for a summertime experience. The model was built on, helping to get some of the work done, but it didn't really have a lot of ROI. So we're really reevaluating this program to serve as a feeder to our maintenance roles. We have a big need in our technician roles. We create a classification that people can grow into those roles, and then awareness of the skilled trades opportunities in the department. Our transportation diversity recruitment program, we go out of state to HBCUs, MSIs, AAPIs, anywhere there's talent around the country. We're trying to steal from your states and bring them here to Michigan for an opportunity. And through 504E, we're able to pay for housing. We don't pay for their travel to get here or from, but while they're here, they're provided a vehicle or travel assistance to get to and from work. And they get a food stipend, just a lot of opportunities for professional development. They feel really recruited. It's taken a lot of years, but as of last year, we had about 8 folks move to Michigan through this program. And I should also mention that we partner with ACEC, so about 50-50 split come work for us at the DOT. The other 50% work for our consultants. And we found that to be beneficial so that people have different experiences, and maybe there's different opportunities or opportunities for folks to move here. They've actually been more successful in bringing folks to the state, but we're happy to bring a diverse group of engineering talent here to Michigan. Our veteran internship program, we just last year crossed the threshold of 100 veterans. This program by far is our highest yield on return on investment, about 70% placement rate. Of that 70%, 30% end up working for us here at the DOT. This program provides a 2-year stipend to come work for us at a very low stress, really just an additional help to a work area. And as people are leaving, we've got that, high quality bench strength of veteran talent on standby. For 504, we're able to do recruiting that we would not otherwise be able to. We post on different sites. We, you know, as I mentioned with TDRP, we go out of state to target diverse talent. We've invested in technology. For any folks in the DOTs here that aren't using Handshake Premium, I can tell you it's been a game changer for us, and having the funds to be able to do that have been helpful. Outside of the office that I work in, outside of the unit that I work in, our office also manages our federal training funds. We use that for, as previously mentioned, NHI classes. Over the last few years, we've expanded that to soft skills training. It pays for out-of-state travel to, you know, participate in these conferences or boards. And then we've also, in the last few years, reintegrated our partial tuition reimbursement, covers 50% of the cost, up to $4,500. So how do we do it? This is the big question. I'm very fortunate to come to this DOT that had been doing it for over 20 years. The difference now is that they're all in the same unit. A lot of this work was done throughout the department. With the creation of our unit, they brought all the programs together. But what has been consistent to make this happen, as mentioned, you know, by Lorri and Jessika, is that leadership support. That is the starting point for all of this. You have to have those leaders engaged and bought in, and how you get that and you continue to sustain that is that return on investment. Communicating with Federal Highway, we meet quarterly to let them know what we're planning on doing for the next fiscal year. I highlighted road and bridge funding. It's important to note this 504E is not additional funding. You're taking money from road and bridge funding. And that with that become, you know, is a great responsibility to make sure that you're getting results. To my knowledge, Michigan is probably the biggest. You know, it's dollar amount that we, you know, set aside for workforce development. But it, excuse me, even with that large amount, it's less than 0.5% of our overall federal budget, less than half of 1%. So it's not a huge, but I understand that every dollar counts, especially when you're looking at matching federal aid or just having, you know, to take that politically. It's really challenging, but the return on investment, the value to the communities that you're serving and bringing folks into this industry, it's becoming an easier sell. That I've heard that a lot more states are trying this out. Really talking about that ROI, talking about the importance of not only the physical infrastructure, but the people to do the work is so important. So we utilize a scope document very similar to the work plans mentioned earlier, which is just a narrative of what we propose. That goes up through our leadership to the Federal Highway leadership, gets signed off. Once we have an approval, you know, each program that I mentioned is assigned a program number, and we can start to charge to that program. Each year, at the end of the calendar year, we provide the Federal Highway with a report on the return on investment. We'll pause here, see if we got any questions. I guess we could have any questions for anybody at this point, since I'm the last one.
I will
Ask
add that as
questions.
sorry, Christine. I will add that as I mentioned earlier, we did create a quick job aid for everyone that just walks you all through those steps. I was trying to share it here through PDF and I'm not able to make that happen, but Trish, I did send it to you, I believe, email. So if you know how to do that, if you'll share with the group, I would appreciate it. And so hopefully that will help anyone who's trying to figure out how we're all doing it and give you a step-by-step there. And I will say the biggest challenge of all of that is the leadership part on the front end, just making sure that across from an organizational effort that everyone's on board. So. What questions can we answer for everyone today?
I have one. This is Ramona Brock from Kentucky Transportation Cabinet. So my question is, how are you three states set up with an office or a branch, a division? How is it set up internally to handle your workforce development programs? Uh, yeah, that's what I'm curious to know.
Yeah, I guess I'll go first because I'm on mute or unmuted. So we have an Office of Organizational Development that is aside from our Office of Human Resources. So we manage the recruitment, the workforce development programs, as well as onboarding, really developing these department-wide policies. And we do things like facilitation in our office as well as managing those federal training dollars and the NHI. So I mean, in total, our office is about 30 people, which is a lot. And I know that not everyone has that level of support to have those number of personnel, but as I was showing each one of those programs, I have a program coordinator. Some of the smaller programs are combined. So we just onboarded our new Transportation Career Pathways program coordinator. They manage the NSTI, the career awareness, as well as the program. And then there's others that kind of have dual roles and backups. But generally, each program has its own coordinator.
I can go next. I report out to an executive within the DOT. Her name is Brenda Williams. She is the Chief of Innovation and Employee Experience. Under her is the Workforce Development Office, as well as Safety, Innovation, and Office of Civil Rights. I believe we are a team of 18 people. And so we handle all of the internal safety is in there, and then civil rights. And then all of our technical training is housed in workforce development. Our Department of Human Resources took on all of the durable skills, being leadership, communication, and those. Our innovation team has started to expand out some in with the facilitation as well. And then also have computer training in there.
So similar at UDOT, we have an employee development function. Again, they hired my position about 10 years ago. I do report to one of the deputies, directors. He's over technology, our technology innovation and program planning. So technology innovations. We do not have HR embedded inside of our DOT. So it's an umbrella HR to all of the state agencies. And so we have found it necessary to have a group like ours that is covering everything outside of transactional HR. And so, like the others have mentioned, James especially, we are doing everything from that recruiting on through succession planning, promotion, etc. We have 18, so I have 10 on my team that report directly to me or up through me. And that's in that group, we have our professional development group, which does all of our leadership training, etc., anything around professional development. And then we have a technical training group that covers all of our technical, those that have already been mentioned, OSHA, safety, transportation, education, construction, materials, all of those types of activities. And then we actually have a business systems group that manages our learning management system, and we have an employee resource site. And that group is also doing the recruiting effort as well. So that's kind of how we are set up here at UDOT. There's another 8 that are out in our regions that report directly to the region, usually the district engineer, and they are responsible for doing the OSHA and traffic control, anything that's needed for our transportation technicians working on the road. So that's a summary of how we're set up. Hopefully we covered your questions. If not, let us know and we'll follow up.
You did. Thank you very much.
Let's see. I think we have some more questions in chat here. is there crossover between our states and LTAPs and to benefit the municipalities? We have a little bit of crossover here. We are open to serving the municipalities with any of the trainings that our construction training program, that's one that is available. That construction training program, you have to do work, you have to complete it in order to do work on our project. So there's some contractual obligation to complete that training program in order to do work for us. And then LTAP comes in and covers the rest of that. And so I will go ahead and leave it with that. That's how UDOT's doing it. Any others?
I responded to the comment in the chat, but I can speak to ours a little bit. We offer funding to our T2 program, which is ran through ours is an LTAC versus an LTAP. And the T2, they provide 50% and we provide the other matching 50%. The T2 program has a Road Scholars, Road Masters, and a leadership program that the local highway jurisdictions can access to send their employees through. Each program has a little bit of a different nuance to it and focuses in on the Roadmaster, and the Road Scholar focuses in on the technical training associated with being in highway maintenance, whereas their leadership program does hone in on leadership skills specific to the construction industry.
Yeah, we have very limited engagement with LTAP other than kind of what Lorri had mentioned about training that's required that we offer to, and they actually have to pay. That was a change in the last few years. We don't use our funding to pay for their training. But there has been an LTAP, one of the statewide ones that's starting to focus on workforce development, and we've engaged with them, but they're very early on.
Well, that answers the LTAP questions. Looking down at the next one is around unions. We don't have unions really in Utah. There's a couple here or there, but they don't impact our workforce here. They're mostly around electrical and other construction fields, but not heavy highway.
Same for Idaho. We don't have a large union focus.
We do. We got, I think, 5 different bargaining units within our DOT, and they've been very supportive. I mean, part of it's communication. So like the way we're able to pay for stipends for some of these programs is through a contract. And any contract that gets put out is reviewed by the unions and they have an opportunity to comment. And we've had no pushback. And we've been doing the veteran program for 11 years, and there's never been a pushback on that program or that says, we don't support this. So they see it as a way to get new members. So they're very supportive.
All right, the next question down looks like support from leaders, and how do we go about gaining that so that we could use the 504E? Do either of you want to start this time, or would you like me to?
I can start.
Thanks.
So this was through a large demonstration of success was gaining that support. So I utilized grants in effort to demonstrate to my leaders that the programs can be successful, and went from there. Had a lot of like one-on-one conversations. A large part of the success, I think, also came from developing the partnerships with other agencies and showing that there is interest beyond just transportation, and that you have the ability to access funding through partners and stretch your dollars so that everybody's kind of playing a part.
I had it really easy. We had a lot of leadership support, and I've maintained that throughout. Like I said, we've been utilizing this funding for over 20 years and different variations of the law. There is more of an eye on it, probably in the last 4 or 5 years of, what are we getting out of it? It hasn't always been the case. We've had these programs and we're doing a really succinct job and showing that there is a growth through the programs, that there is an impact to our day-to-day workforce from these programs. So that's how we're able to maintain that support.
Yeah, and I would say that my experience has been similar to James. We started out, I think once they figured out they could do this, they started doing this on a very small level. And over the years, we have continued to increase it. Right now, what I would say is, like everyone, our transportation workforce, we're just really struggling. And so we are more than willing to increase it and try to figure out ways to attract folks into transportation. And so right now it is easier, but there is always that conversation of pulling money out of another program or for us off of the road. Before IIJA, you couldn't really use those other funds. They listed them there, but you couldn't use it as freely as you can now. So they've really made it a lot easier under the IIJA authorization to utilize these funds. And so most leaders are aware of it at this point, which I think is a good thing for those of us in workforce development. And so now it's just really being able to, I suggest starting small and letting them see that it is making an impact. And the gratitude that you will get from even the education system in terms of wanting to have transportation involved and showing what a great career it is, the schools will invite you in. And any level of awareness is really good for transportation right now. What I have discovered is it's just not on the radar. And if counselors aren't talking about it, parents aren't talking about it, teachers aren't talking about it, they're going to be choosing other careers. And so that's an easy in, I guess that's what I would say, is that's an easy way to step in and try to encourage that awareness across transportation. And then, as Jessica mentioned, we are currently, I would say I'm finally have buy-in to go broader across our transportation sector and with those partner agencies out there, AGC of course, but our workforce investment boards, education, et cetera, because of the challenges that we're having attracting people into transportation, there's support to do that, which in the past we really didn't have it. We just kind of stayed within ourselves with it. So I think it's the right time. It's a great time within transportation to try to step up and get access to some of these funds. I encourage you to do so. Let's see. So for anyone who's not looking, someone posted the playbook link, which is great. Thank you so much for doing that. That will step you through the strategic workforce planning process that I had mentioned during my presentation. So thank you. James suggested using the word pilot. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Just let them try to, encourage them to let you try it out and pilot it. They could take it away next year if they want, but they probably won't. So, and then here's another question. What work experiences, DOT or otherwise, have contributed to your ability to be both effective and creative in development or refinement of your current and future programs? So I'm assuming you're asking, what have we done before coming to the DOT in our work life to understand workforce development? Did I get that right? I don't see. It looks like Michael. Yes. James or Jessica, would you like to answer?
I will. I came from Nevada Department of Transportation prior to coming to Idaho, and I started out on a highway construction crew as an engineer technician 1. Sometimes I look back on it and I realize that I started out making $12 an hour, which is a little unheard of now. But I was in the capacity of a inspector, materials tester. We did all of our own survey work, and so I had certifications in materials testing, traffic control, inspection work, and amongst other things. I then came over to Idaho during the pandemic and started out in the Office of Civil Rights as the contract compliance officer, which is where I got to really dive into the workforce development efforts through the on-the-job training supportive services, and then went into the Office of Civil Rights Program Manager when our Department of Human Resources centralized across the state, and that kind of split out our training teams. That's what created our workforce development program manager, which thus became me. And so I've spent my entire adult life in transportation, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
It's awesome. Jessica, I just learned something new about you. Thanks for sharing all that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll be brief. So I started in state government at the Department of Corrections. I was an employment counselor, which was kind of a weird title for a job, but I worked with prisoners that were about to get out, connecting them with jobs. That's where I really got, an interest and excitement around workforce development, connecting with employers, working, on talent pipelines. From there, I transitioned to our State Department of Labor, really getting to understand the whole system and how it works. And then this opportunity at the DOT came up and during the pandemic as well, Jessica. I came in January of 2020 and I was like real excited. And then a couple months later, but we've made it work coming out of the pandemic. The big thing that I've been able to bring to this role is partially that talent pipeline management, as well as leading with data. External data is really important of where is our workforce at today, and showing some sobering numbers to leaders to say, hey, we don't have a diverse pipeline. We don't have, in some cases, any pipeline. Our surveyors is an example that's just really scary. We require a 4-year degree for our surveyors, and there are about 18 graduating each year, and the industry needs about 80. So like there's a huge gap, and we can see those, for each of our really hard to fill positions, and showing that and showing the urgency is really important. Leading with data. We all work for departments of, engineers, and they want to see the numbers, and it's really important to them that they're data informed decisions. So that's where I'll stop.
Thanks, James. I just learned something new about you too. Thanks. So we've actually taken a similar path. I also started out what I would call what we call our Department of Workforce Services here in Utah. I started out in our eligibility group and then moved into our workforce development group there. And I too became pretty passionate about workforce development and did a lot of partnering with the community and our Governor's Office of Economic Development, and really learned about workforce development in the state of Utah overall. And so I do have that. And then I also have a lot of training and development background as well. So 25 years in those two spheres of employee development and workforce development is really the skill set that I brought to the table here at UDOT. And I think that's what you kind of need. But that being said, really all of that information is also available through your partner agencies. So what you need is somebody who's willing to take a chance and just step out and start, and really is good at probably strategic planning or planning overall, and then getting in and getting partners to the table to help you figure that out. Because I think that there's people in those other agencies that have the skill set that I have as well. And as long as somebody from the DOT is partnering with them, they will be able to guide you along the way for sure. So, and I would also agree with James on the data. UDOT is a data-driven decision-making organization. And if I can bring that data to the table and show them through our workforce investment boards and other places along those lines, education partners, that it works and that there's ROI, they're going to be on board. So I think hopefully that answers your question about what other kind of skill sets that you would need to bring to the table. I think it's mostly about passion about building workforce and then organizing those efforts. So somebody who's really good at organizing those efforts. I think we are out of time. So thanks everyone for joining us. I see Trisha's popped back up here, and I don't know how we want to close out the day, but I appreciate everyone's time and attention. And Christine or Trish, anything before we leave today?
I just want to say thank you to all three of you. You've done such an incredible job today with sharing all of your knowledge of what you've done. And Christine, I'll leave it to you. Oh, you're muted.
Well, that's not helpful. Thanks everybody for joining. Just wanted to give a shout out that many DOTs mentor other DOTs. So if you have any questions, if you just would like to have a chat, I'm sure anyone on the panel today, Trish, myself, and others are just happy to share our experiences, provide support, or just an understanding ear or shoulder. So thanks for joining today.
Yes, and I would add to that point that our contact information is on the bottom of that job aid. So if anybody is looking for information from any of us, we added our contact information to that.
I just wanted to make a quick plug for the link that I stuck in the chat too for our tools inventory and the playbook. And
Yes.
we should be posting this recording there, as well as that job aid, which I also linked to in the chat. But everyone go visit the tools inventory. It's really awesome.
Thanks, everyone. Have an amazing day.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.